Hey there, bookworms. Welcome to Pouring Over Books, a podcast where we dive into the books we love and maybe a few we didn't. I'm your host, LaShawn, and every week I'll be deep diving into what I'm reading, recommendations, and talking about all the things that we love about books. So grab your favorite coffee or tea, find a cozy spot, and let's get ready to pour over some great books together. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Pouring Over Books podcast. My name is LaShawn, and I am your host. And I have 2 weeks until my son starts school. Yes, I live in the South, so we get out early and then we go back early, which is sad. I love summer despite the heat of it all and the fact that fall is actually my favorite season. So I'm sad. I would like for the lazy, hazy days of summer to continue on without having to get back into the back to school routine, but that's life. But anyway, I have several things I want to discuss today. I had an interesting reading week, and while I will have more on that later, let's just say it's nice to still be surprised despite how many books I read. But a question that I have for all readers is, do you include rereads in your total books read? I'm getting ready to start a reread of The Throne of Glass and Akatar and Crescent City series because you know that Sarah J. Maas announced that she finished a draft for Akatar 6. That could mean most likely that we won't get a book until 2027, but I'm thinking probably next year, mid to late next year. Since I do read other things, I don't want to have to rush to reread all of the books because it's been years now when the book is officially announced. I feel like after years of reading only certain books or certain parts of the books to get my fix, it is time for me to reread the entire thing, like catch up, like visiting a relative or an old friend. I haven't reread the entire series as a whole in years, and especially Avatar, I haven't reread that series as a whole since it came out, so it's time. But do I put them on the Storygraph? Because I won't be skimming these books. I will actually be reading them again, word for word, and taking notes most likely. I deserve credit for that, right? Let me be clear. I want credit, so I will be adding them to my Storygraph as currently reading and read when I'm done. I just wonder what everyone else does. Or am I one of the few who reread books? That's the question. So do you add books that you reread to your Goodreads or to whatever tracking device you use? Do you do that? Or do you mark them as rereads, but still count them towards your reading for the year? Let me know. Send me a message. Let me know. Because I deserve credit. Let's see, the next thing on my list, there was, of course, book drama, as usual, discourse last week. But you know what? I'm tired of it. So tired that I don't even feel like I want to address it and start controversy and have people in my DMs. I don't. But I will say that I'm sad that cancel culture in the book community is starting to look a lot like censorship and book banning more than an actual discussion and concern for marginalized groups. It's like it's people take real causes as an excuse to bully people on the internet or off the internet, as it seems. And that's all I got to say about that, in the words of Forrest Gump. Next, I want to talk about ratings. I saw even more discourse on what makes a good book and how we should be reviewing a book. And I'm like, some things are so subjective. And I think sometimes people just got to let stuff go. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say that my reviews are 50% vibes and 50% technical. Like, I tend to start with a 3. Like, if it's decent and I got through it, it's a 3. As long as the story was decent and good, it's going to get a 3 for me. That's my starting point, and I tend to go from there. I add or subtract based on, number 1, the writing. Number 2, did I struggle? Number 3, was it a good time? A scary time? Did it make me feel something? That's the vibes. 4, was it cohesive? Like, did it make sense? Did it have pacing problems? Like, did it slow up in the middle and make me lose interest and want to stop? things like that. Number 5, and was the ending satisfying and did it at least make sense? Now, my vibes might not be your vibes, but what I try to do if the book doesn't work for me, I do try to find something about it that did, or I don't review it on here most of the time. So if I mention a book that I was reading and then you never hear about it again, that may be why. Because I might not have anything great to say about it. And I'm like, why waste all of our times? Sometimes a book is unexpectedly not what I was looking for, and I will review it in that vein. But I try never to actively disparage or talk that badly about somebody's work on the internet unless it's just horrid trends, unless it's just horrid. Now, moving on. So I know I said I wasn't going to do a best books of the year episode because I felt like I had already talked about what my best books were, and I just felt like it's the middle of the year. I haven't even gotten started yet. But I did like the idea of doing a mid-year reading and review. So review what I've liked about my reading this year. And I made a few categories. Let me see. I've got 8 categories. So let's get started with that. Number 1, I did include my favorite book of the year so far because I figured that is something that, we can talk about. That, of course, was King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. Friends, I love being surprised by a book, and this one surprised me so many times while reading it, and I love that for me. This is what happens when you spend a few years disassociating and only reading 2 genres. I was wrote that would be romance and romantasy for me. You forget that you actually like other types of books. King of Ashes reminded me that I like a good thriller, a good crime thriller, specifically with lots of blood and gore. I'm currently planning to read his backlist, and I'm prepared to love even more gory thrillers, and I love that for my reading life because variety is the spice of life, friend, and diversity in reading never hurt anyone. Now, the second category is a new release that I want to read but haven't gotten to yet, and that would be Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I'm going to give you a little summary. Bury in the Bones of the Midnight Soil tells the intertwined stories of 3 women across several centuries and locations, each encountering a pivotal moment that leads to their transformation into vampires. Maria in 1532, Charlotte in 1827, and Alice in 2019 each face unique challenges and desires for freedom, escape, or a new identity. Their individual journeys converge as they become more entangled in a centuries-long drama of love, power, and hunger. The novel explores themes of immortality, the price of freedom, and the enduring nature of connection, even across vast stretches of time and circumstance. Friends, I want to read this book. I own a copy. It's waiting on my Kindle, but for some reason I keep putting it off. I've only heard good things, so I'm not sure why. But sometimes you just have to be in the right headspace for vampires, I guess. Or I know it's V.E. Schwab. It's not going to be an easy book, I guess you can say. And sometimes you just have to wrap your head around the fact that it's not literary fiction, but it's V.E. Schwab. So I feel like I need the right headspace for that. But I'm going to get to it. I really am. The next category is the biggest disappointment. And that would be What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown. Friends. This was on my summer reading list, if you recall. I talked about this book multiple times, but the gist of it is a teenage girl breaks free from her father's world of isolation to discover that her whole life is a lie. In my brain, it was giving Where the Crawdads Sing, but with a parent, maybe a little educated. That book, but without the cult. What I got was a book that started off strong, but began to slow down around 50% and lost me at 75%. And just when it should have been grabbing a better hold on me. To me, the last 25% felt rushed and the ending was sort of anticlimactic anticlimactic. That sort of kind of ruined it for me, but not really. It's hard to explain. I gave it a 3.5. So it was okay. I would say read it because most people will probably enjoy this. I won't give away too much more info because you really need to go into it blind to get the full picture and the impact. And personally, I was disappointed. Like, I feel like my expectations might have been too high, but I just feel like for some reason, the last portion of the book, the last 25%, just did not do the rest of the book justice. And I was disappointed. All right. The fourth category that I want to get into is my biggest surprise of the year so far. And that is going to be Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. And I don't know why. I love Devney Perry. She wrote one of my favorite romance series, The Edens. How many books are in that series? There are like 6 books in that series. I love all of them. Did I love all of them? There's one. No, I loved all of them. They're all good. It's really good. She's a really good writer, really good romance writer. She does the small town thing. Yes, I adore her books. Except for her new series I haven't read yet, but for the most part, I adore her books. But for some reason, I had no expectations when it came to her first romantasy. In fact, I would have known nothing about it if Emily from our romance episode earlier this year hadn't been harping on this book. I decided on a whim to read it the day it came out. I was talking to Emily like the day before, and she was mad that her physical copy was going to be late. And I was like, you know what? It's on Kindle Unlimited. I'll just get it, and I'll just see. I'll just see. I just said I'll read the first chapter just to see. And friends, I was up until 2 a.m. My friends, it has been a long time since a book of a romantasy series, the first book especially, has drawn me in and kept me in a chokehold like this one. Like I said, from the first page, I was drawn in. I literally could not put this book down. Everything about it kept me interested. From the monsters, like I'm still questioning what exactly are they, the world building to our main characters, all 3, and the slow burn and tension and the I hate you of it all. Yes, everything about this book drew me in and kept me on the edge of my seat until the very last page. I had theories upon theories. Some of them I was right about, but the majority of them I was so wrong. And the last page, I was like, wait, oh my God. I am already planning my reread because I missed every clue that she threw at us. And I need to go back now that I have foresight on the end and go back and see all the little things. Devney Perry skillfully led us through this new world and the mystery of it all. And yes, like I said, there's still so much to discuss about it. This gave me first time reading Akatar feels. The first time reading Throne of Glass feels like I literally cannot wait until the next one. And it upsets me because, I've gotten back into starting series that are not finished this year. And there are like several now that I'm like, now I'm just waiting because I have no idea when the next one is coming. Like none. But that's good for me. Patience is a virtue. I gave that book a 5 out of 5, by the way. Favorite new author to me. That is my next category. And I have to go with S.A. Cosby. I have been hearing about this man for years. And it reached a crescendo last year when All Sinners Bleed came out. Like that book was everywhere. I could not listen to a podcast without somebody mentioning it. I could not go in the bookstore without seeing it. I could not go online without reading about it. Like it was everywhere. And I was like, I don't want to read that. But I own the book in both audiobook and a physical copy. I also own Razorblade Tears, I believe. He's been on my read these books list for quite some time. So, and now that I get the hype, yes, I will be obsessively reading his backlist. And I can't wait because like I said, I need more thrillers in my life. I need more well-written thrillers in my life. What is going well for me this year? 2 things. DNFing more and listening to more audiobooks. I have a new system. If I'm curious about a book, I'm allowed to read like the first chapter or 2 and see if it grabs me and not add it to my Storygraph as reading it or anything. I treat it like I'm reading a preview, and if the book holds me past the first couple of chapters, I'll sometimes go ahead and mark it as reading, but sometimes I wait until 50% before I do. I got this idea from Meredith on Currently Reading podcast because it's like a preview. And I'm like, that's perfect because I start a lot of books and don't finish them because I'm like, okay, this is not, I get 25% in and I'm like, okay, this is not worthy of my time. But sometimes, even if I get to 60%, which happened to me last week, if I'm not feeling it, I stop and I don't feel guilty. And I simply mark it as stop reading for now or take it off my list, or I officially make it a DNF. And I love this for me because there's no guilt. And that is growth for me. I used to think if I got to 50% of a book, I had to finish, but now, no. There are literally too many good books out there for me to waste my time on a bad one. And I love that. The other thing that has changed my reading life is listening to more audiobooks and tandem reading with physical books. I admit sometimes I listen to a book while cleaning or driving or dive into the Kindle version or the physical copy at bedtime. So I'm tandem reading it. It helps me get through books faster sometimes. Sometimes a book is a walking book. Sometimes a book is a cleaning book. But the key is always been to have a book waiting. I use the library, Libro FM, Everand, and Spotify to curate the perfect ongoing audiobook list. And I love, again, I love that for me. It's I won't say it's helped me get through more books this year, but it satisfies my need sometimes to be productive, but still have some listening to something while I'm being productive, like cleaning. And in the car, since I got rid of satellite radio, listening to audiobooks and podcasts has become one of my favorite things to do. All right. So the next category is what book are you most looking forward to for the rest of the year? And that is going to be Son of the Morning by Akwaeke Emeze. Akwaeke Emeze is the author of one of my favorite books. She made a fool out of Death with Your Beauty. I have another one of her books that came out last year. It's called Little Rot. It's on my I'm like, it's one of those books I started, realized that the subject matter was quite different from the first book of hers, and had to pause it. I'm coming back to it, but I had to pause it for now. But anyway, I was looking at the literary journal's books for the rest of the year list and saw this little gem appear. Let me tell you what it's about. Um, it's a steamy paranormal romance set in the Black South, which grabbed me right there. Gayle Kincaid, raised by a powerful matriarchal family, always sensed a deep ancient secret about her existence. This feeling intensifies when she meets Lucifer Hillel, and I'm like, head of security for a wealthy friend. Gayle instantly knows that Lucifer isn't human, and their first touch reveals a shocking truth. She isn't human either. Their attraction threatens to ignite a war between hell, heaven, and earth as Leviathan, a prince of hell, seeks to eliminate Gayle. Loyalties crumble as Kincaid's secrets collide with infernal powers, forcing Gayle to embrace her true, formidable power. I am always looking for a fantasy slash romantasy by Black authors. So this one immediately caught my eye. I love when an author has proven to me that they can in fact write, a la, Daphne Perry, and gives me something different. And honestly, I can say that about all of her books. Each book that I've read of hers has been vastly different. And I am so looking forward to this one. I love when somebody has range. I've requested and received an advance copy, so I will chit chat with you about this one as we get closer to the release date, which is not until November 1st. I'm so excited about that one, though. So excited. And lastly, what are your reading goals for the rest of the year? Friends, my goal is simply to keep reading and sharing here with you. I always have grand plans to expand this podcast and find more bookish friends. So soon, by the end of summer, this podcast will have a video component, just in case you are curious about any of my facial expressions, and you will see that I use my hands to talk a lot, like a lot. And my facial expressions always give stuff away. So that's it. That is my mid-year reading check-in. But before we go, let's get into my current reads, etc., etc. What I just finished reading. I just finished reading a book called Pen Pal by J.T. Gessinger. I feel like the book description is misleading, I'll say. So I'm going to try to give you my own summary. Our book begins with Kayla standing at her husband's grave, dealing with grief and a huge house that needs repairs. She calls repairmen and electricians, and she's had a hard time getting somebody in there. And finally, she finds one roof repair guy who agrees to work with her and falls into a relationship with him so soon after her husband's death. And so she's feeling a little guilty about that. Meanwhile, strange things keep happening in the house. Her doorbell rings and no one is there. Cabinet doors open and close when no one is there. Jars of honey sling across the room unexpectedly with no one there. She keeps losing time and she's forgetting things and she feels like someone is watching her. And to top it off, she has a strange pen pal from the state penitentiary whose first letter to her says, "I'll wait forever if I have to." She writes back, and let's just say by the time she figures out who he is, nothing prepares you for what happens next. Friends, I saw a reaction to the end of this book online and was like, that looks interesting. Let me give it a try. I decided to listen to it, but then as I do, I got the Kindle edition too because it was on Kindle Unlimited and I wanted to tandem read it because I knew that, once I get into bed, I don't want to listen. I want to read it. When I first started this book, I wasn't sure exactly what I was reading. It seemed like a dark romance. It is marketed as a dark romance, but it had stalker elements, which goes with the dark romance. But it also had some other weird elements. The book description totally threw me off. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, because the book took a completely different turn than the one I was expecting. The dark romance portion, it's just your typical BDSM. I mean, not usually my thing, but it fit and it wasn't over the top. But I kept feeling like I was missing something. Like the author was leaving me clues and I wasn't picking up on that. And I could feel that. And I'm like, what am I missing here? There's something else going on here and I'm not getting it. And so I was getting frustrated, but I kept reading and I thought I had a theory. But friends, when the plot twisted, I was like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? It all made sense. And I can't say more because then I will give it all away. Because I could give you like the biggest clue ever and you'd be like, "Ah," and it would give away the book. Like I literally cannot review this book because I need you to go in blind. I need you to go in blind because if I can't say more, because I will give it all away and you will not have the joy of being surprised like me. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 and I'm going to recommend it. I really am. I'm going to recommend it. Trigger warnings. No, not even trigger warnings. Just that it is a dark romance. And dark romances do tend to be a little more violent in terms of the sexy times. It's not vanilla sex. And that's all I will say about this so that my podcast does not get a crazy rating. That's all. Currently reading The Gold Coast Dilemma by Nana Malone. During an opulent publishing party, Afasa Otto crosses paths with Cole Drake for the first time. The flirtatiously witty exchange culminates in a kiss that etches a permanent mark on both of their hearts. But Ofasa's identity as a Ghanaian heiress comes before Cole. She loves the vibrant traditions of Ghana's Gold Coast, and her hand is already promised to a man that even her overbearing mother loves. Yet, when her big Ghanaian wedding transformed from a fairy tale into a spectacle, she's thrust into a whirlwind of heartbreak and self-discovery. In the midst of it all, Cole enters her life once again under circumstances far different from their magical first encounter. Can Ofasa and Cole's discovered spark overcome the weight of tradition? I'm like maybe 25% to this one. I'm intrigued. It's good. I'm also listening to Everyone is Lying to You by Jo Piazza. This book is everywhere. Jo Piazza, when did I discover her? She has a podcast, not a podcast. She has a Substack. I think I discovered her right around the time when Treadwise became a big thing. She was writing about it a lot, which is why this book makes sense for her. College best friends Lizzie and Bex drifted apart after graduation when Bex vanished. 15 years later, Bex resurfaces as Rebecca Summers, a wildly successful Instagram influencer. Meanwhile, Lizzie is a struggling writer And unexpectedly, Rebecca offers Lizzie a career making exclusive interview and an invitation to a major influencer conference. When Rebecca disappears and her husband is murdered, Lizzie is pulled into the cutthroat world of social media. She must uncover Rebecca's secrets and past betrayals to find her, clear her own name, and potentially save Rebecca's life. I started reading this or listening to this and immediately told some of my influencer friends that we all have to listen to this. That's all I gotta say. Up next, Friends I Have No Idea. For today, Chasing Shelter by Catherine Cowles comes out, and it is the next to last book in her new romance series. As always, she always does series. It's always like a series of friends or a series of brothers and sisters or something like that. And she writes books about each of them and their romance and them finding love. As always, she saves my favorite characters, the ones I really want to see for last. And so the last two books are like my favorite, the ones I wanted. So I'll be reading this one. It's almost like a palate cleanser after my little dark romance, but Catherine Cowles writes romance that always has something wild happening to the main character. Like someone is always getting kidnapped or stalked, etc. And the main male character always comes in and saves her. You know, your standard romance with a twist, except hers are really good. I know that every few months I can count on her to have a good story. But other than that, the fact is that I have about 3 books going all at once. So I don't really have a next book. I simply need to finish the ones that I started, including The Girls Who Grew Big by Layla Motley that I talked about last week, an arc that I'm in the middle of called Prince Material, which is a male-male romance, and I have to get back to the Guild series. On book 4, I took a pause because I binged like the first 3 books. I needed a break. I'm going to get back into that one soon so I can finish that out. It's a lot. But okay, friends, that is all for today. That is all I have for you this week. If you love this episode, please do me a favor and make sure to follow the podcast so that you don't miss the next one. It's free, it helps the show, and hopefully it keeps your TBR interesting. As always, you can follow me personally on IG and TikTok at LaShawn Wiltz and on my Substack, Letters to LaShawn. Okay, friends, thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.